Hello and welcome back to one of our Bee Agriculture Career Conversations. If you've checked out our other, there's 8 career conversations on top of this one. So we hope that you have either watched one of those career panels, or after you've watched this panel, you go and click a link to another, just so that you can start learning about all the different ways that you can be agriculture when you look at your career path. Today, we're going to be focusing on how you can be the process. So what does that mean? So we're looking at, and we've asked industry professionals to join us today as we look at food, basically from the recipe to the packaging to the nutrients that it provides our body. How can you be a part of that food chain and helping distribute from farm to table? Maybe it's battling single-use plastics, helping people maintain healthy diets, or you're the connection between that farm and table. So today our 3 industry professionals that will be introducing themselves soon have a lot of experience and a wealth of knowledge to share with you on what they get to do on the daily, basically. So Michigan Farm Bureau has put together these career panels, and we're excited that you are joining us. My name's Katie, and I work with our high school and college students. And just a couple of reminders to those students that are joining us today. You are on mute. And unfortunately, the only faces you get to see are these ones. So, but that doesn't mean you can't engage. If you do have some questions, there is a question and answer pod there that feel free to ask any questions that you want of the panelists. And in our time, if we're able to get those in, we will. And if we don't get to them, we'll make sure that we follow up with you and get those answers for you as well. So to get us started, we're just going to dive right in. I'm going to start with Todd. And Todd, I have you, let's just have you kind of introduce yourself, give us your title, and then maybe one part of your job that you really enjoy specific to food processing.
Okay, thank you. So I am Dr. Todd DeKryger. I work for Nestle as part of, well, obviously many brands within Nestle, but I focus primarily on the Gerber baby food brand, which there again is, so I'm located here in Fremont, Michigan. So my title is basically Agricultural Supplier Development Regional Manager for North America, and we are a part of the more global Nestle agricultural program, which also includes not only fruits, vegetables, and grains that we're aware, we deal with here, as well as dairy, but also coffee and cocoa, obviously outside the United States. What do I enjoy, about my career area, where I get to sit, where I deal with every day? I get to see a very broad agriculture in North America and beyond, which is quite amazing.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. Matt, if you would introduce yourself.
Matt Munsell from Munsell's Poultry Processing and also Munsell Farms. The reason that I enjoy what I do is we do something different every day. Every day is something new. And you really get to enjoy the challenges and the ups, the rewards of the agriculture community.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And Megan, thanks for joining us. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Megan Eppler. I'm the Associate Director of Packaging R&D for Mars Pet Care, which is in Franklin, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. I lead the packaging R&D team that develops the packaging materials, shape, size, and solutions that help get your pet's products from basically the processing end into your home. It's a little bit about how it makes it through the supply chain, a little bit about how you open it, how you dose it, but my team leads that kind of protection end of the packaging as it gets from basically factory to home.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you all for taking time to be with us today and sharing a little bit of your background and your passion with our students. We're going to start out with Todd. Kind of give us, explain to us 2 or 3 main tasks that you get to do regularly. And regularly could be daily, could be seasonally, but what would be 3 main tasks you would say you get to participate in?
Well, there again, because we're mainly focused here in Fremont on infant nutrition and Gerber baby food, really our quality standards are tough enough that we really cannot just purchase commodities. As we say, our commodities like oats and wheat and rice are not even commodities, specialized. So it's really almost impossible for us to go outside our network. Externally, so we provide the technical information to our growers and our ingredient suppliers. So like with our vegetable growers, in fact, I was working on it earlier this morning, our soil program. So when for our carrot growers here in Michigan and our squash growers in Michigan, we actually go test the soils first to see that they qualify for contaminants like heavy metals and soil pesticides. And then once that field is qualified, then the grower can go ahead and plant it. They're into carrots or squash or one of those types of crops. And so then internally too, because we are basically that face of agriculture, we're that source of agriculture knowledge. We get questions from everybody. I mean, from the CEO right on down through our regulatory people, corporate affairs. If there's some issue going on, well, arsenic and rice cereal. I dealt with that one last year. That falls very much in our lap for having that knowledge, providing the people who don't have that knowledge within Nestle, providing them that information about how the rice is grown, what the growers are doing, that type of information. So that also comes to us. We also work with product developers. So they're looking for a new crop that would also, their end has to meet a level. So they come to us and say, what do you think about, blending, pick your new fruit and vegetable or grain that might go into, a mix with something else. And so we get involved in that, those decisions as well. So the questions come from pretty much anywhere and everywhere.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Todd. Matt, what about you? Tell us, give us 2 or 3 tasks that you get to do throughout the year.
So on the poultry side, one of the daily tasks that I just do is interact with customers that bring us poultry that they want processed. So that's really, helping them make the decisions on where they get it. They're going to sell it. Are they selling it to a restaurant? Do they want it cut up? Do they want it whole? How are they going to cook it? That kind of stuff. What options they have there to maximize the profit out of the animal that they're raising for sale, or even just taking back to their home freezers to feed themselves for the year. So that's really great. The customer interaction and see how people are doing and what they do different and different things like that. On the farming side of it, obviously springtime right now, planting everything in the field. It's nice to get going this year, unlike last year. So it's really interesting to see when you put that seed in the ground, you can watch it grow into something that's harvested, that will go into ultimately feed people, whether it's to feed an animal and then feed people, or whether it directly goes to feed people. On the vegetable plants, they'll grow that tomato into a plant that'll produce fruit that they can eat. And then also, obviously the backside of that is harvest season. Now you've watched that seed grow, you've fed it, you've taken care of it best you can. And then now, you get to harvest it and sell it. So those are probably the 3 main categories that I would think that, I most enjoy about my job.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Megan, give us 2 or 3 items, tasks that you get to do.
I will say that for me, not one day is exactly the same as the day before. So kind of the big groups of tasks that my team deals with is we support our innovation process. So if we're launching a new particular diet for dry dog food, we will talk to our marketing friends about how big they want the bag to be, how do they want it to open, what does the finish look like, what colors do they want, and help them design that bag to deliver that messaging that they want for their brand. Another kind of bucket of tasks that we deal with is supporting our factories. So if they're getting fluctuations in their raw materials and it's changing, for example, the bulk density of a product, we will partner with them to figure out how to keep their packaging sustainably running, because we're packing an agricultural product, for example. So if the there was not as much rain in one year and it changes the bulk density of the raw ingredient, and we have to adjust the length of the bag that we're running to make sure it all fits in the bag. You know, we partner with them on those things. And then the third kind of bucket of things that I've been dealing a lot with lately is partnering with our suppliers to think about how we can make our packaging material sustainable in the long run. So a task that I might have is to vet a new paperboard supplier on what are their sustainable, pulp sourcing practices to see how it'll impact us as we try to achieve our sustainability commitments for 2025. And that could be 20 different tasks among it, but it could be having phone calls, it could be like touching and feeling their material, it could be taking that material to our factory to see if it would run on the machine we have or if we need a new machine. So those are kind of the buckets, but the actual task could be different day to day and minute to minute, but it's a lot of phone calls and facilitating conversations, I would say.
Cool. So you guys everybody does something completely different, right? But yet at the same time, all trying to just produce quality food for the consumer. So loved hearing a little bit about what you guys get to do. And I'm sure we could probably spend all day knowing more and just get to hear more about what you do. But I'm curious on how you got to your spot. So what kind of training, what kind of education, whether it's formal or non-formal, are there continuing education that you need to, certifications that you need to stay up on? Just curious, as a student looking ahead, what are some of their next steps after they graduate high school in the education realm to kind of get to where you guys are at?
Well, yes. Okay. Start saying I'm a 3-time Spartan. I actually got a bachelor's degree in horticulture for fruits and vegetable production, a master's degree from the Department of Entomology, and my PhD is in actually food safety from the resource development, which doesn't even exist anymore, but used to be at MSU. And then along the way, I also got a certificate program from MSU on international food law. Not only, when we sell things in the States, but we might make it here, but sell it somewhere else. So we have to understand, country of sale, what their food laws are, because they pretty much are very different than here in the United States. Never stop learning. I mean, so I got all this formal education, but every day is a learning experience. And actually, when I started at Gerber's, I just had my bachelor's degree, and I actually had to go back, and it took me 9 years to get the other degrees, but on a part-time basis. But there again, I realized that I had to have that for my job. So yeah, really, every day is a learning experience.
Matt, what about you? What's your background in career training?
So I grew up on the family farm, so that was kind of education started young. The only real formal education that I have is a HACCP trained certification class that we had to take for the poultry place. HACCP is hazard analysis of critical control points. So basically food safety. Is there an issue? How do we take care of it? How do we monitor that issue? As far as informal training, there's been lots of those. A lot of it's just on the job training, on the go fly.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
I have
Megan.
a packaging degree from Michigan State, and I have worked in packaging R&D my whole career. So you can get into packaging from a variety of different ways. I specifically got into it from the packaging degree, but I work with a lot of people at chemical engineering degrees or something else. But I have a packaging degree. And then from a continuing education perspective, I've also done things like HACCP training as it applies to what we produce. I've done some on-the-job training like a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt course through my company. And then a lot of additional sort of company-led business, finance, kind of marketing training, so I can better understand the cross-functional partners that I work with in my day-to-day job. And then also a lot of kind of development courses on people management and how the business interaction is more with that. So I have a very good technical foundation from my educational. And then as I've decided if I was going to be a technical leader in the company or a people leader in the company, I took more specific tailored trainings to help me develop those skills along the way.
Awesome, great. So when you were all looking at careers and making choices, what drew you to the career that you have today? What excites you about it? What made you say, yes, this is what I want to do?
First and foremost, I love agriculture and just the food supply chain, just especially here in the United States, it fascinates me. It's very complex, but at the same time, it's pretty fundamentally simple. Both and Megan mentioned HACCP, but we all focus on that and that food safety, and it's just fundamental regardless of size. And so, no, it's that part of it really has fascinated me in the food chain and getting it from dare I say, farm to fork, or use any other analogy you want. But it's just amazing how many people, how many steps go along those supply chains, and each point in the supply chain has to do its part in order to get it from field to fork. And so it's just fascinating.
Matt, what about you? What kind of drew you?
As I stated earlier, it was a family farm, so I grew up into it. Like I say, our farm was started in 1904, so it's been around for a while, and so just kind of took that and ran with it. And then as far as the poultry processing side, there was one in town that closed, so we decided to open one and run that avenue with it. And it's interesting to see, like I said earlier, talk to customers and see what they're trying to do to support their farms and how they're going to keep their agriculture legacy alive and going. So,
awesome. Thank you. Megan, what kind of pointed you on this direction?
I would say for me, even as early as middle school or high school, I think I heard about packaging in a math and science conference when I was in middle school, and I just kind of knew that was something I was interested in. For me, it's a good blend of business and science because we're designing something and it's a little bit of art as well. But what's kept me in this career that I've been in one way or another for over 15 years is packaging has this really cool of being able to kind of interact with lots of points in the supply chain. Is kind of you get to dabble in it. So from my perspective in packaging, it's been fun to really kind of partner with the people who go out and source the coffee beans that are going to go into our packaging and understand how their supply chain impacts the end where we're going to put it in the can or the bag, or understand about where the milk comes from so we can make it into cheese and put it into a package, or whatever the case may be. So it's been really interesting for me to kind of build my technical skills and kind of rely on that to allow me to see different parts of the process, get it from point A to point B, to kind of dig into whatever is interesting me from the position of strength. Like I get the packaging part, I understand it, so now it allows me to kind of go dig into other things that are interesting to me. And so that's why I've stayed in this career as opposed to completely changing it and being like a realtor or something totally.
Sure. No, I love it. Those are awesome. And I love hearing, and I think I've said it on all of our panels, I love hearing passion. Like you can just hear all of you just have passion for what you're doing. And that's really our end goal. Like if we can wake up and we, for the most part, enjoy our day and look forward to it, then, and be able to attack anything that comes our way, that's kind of a life goal right there, I would say. So for students that are watching this, what are some suggested classes or extracurricular activities, or just like hobbies that they could start dabbling in to learn more about the supply chain, or to just see if this might be of interest to them to kind of go down this processing path? Todd, what would you suggest?
Well, yeah, I would suggest, I mean, there again, as students looking for, part-time jobs or whatever, and that food chain is interesting to you, try and get jobs in different parts of the food chain, because certainly you get a totally different perspective, working on, say, in a grocery store, or, in the produce aisle versus on the farm, and what you do on the farm impacts what you would see, in the grocery store. And so I would recommend that as basically is, if you want to understand the food chain, try and force yourself into having experiences along that food chain to better understand it.
That's great. Matt, what would be some of your suggestions?
I mean, I'd like to add on to what Todd said. Get a job in it. That's the easiest. Find out what you like to do before you start. Down that path. It's a lot of people say, "Hey, we want to do this," and they get a degree in it, and then they do it for a week, and they're like, "I don't know if we want to do that." The other side of it is, get into groups. I know Farm Bureau has a lot of issues or a lot of options for people to do networking. Network with people. Find people that are in that. Find out what they like about it, what they don't. It gives you options to, agriculture is so large and vast that you don't have to do everything the same way that somebody else did it. You could put your own twist on it. Farmers market, you could deliver. You can, have customer pickup. People can do different things there. There's lots of different options. So, I mean, I guess what Todd said, you have to find your passion first, and then go from there. There's lots of ways you can work that into agriculture, from shipping to producing to selling to however, the opportunities are endless. So.
Thanks, Matt. Megan, what would be some of your suggestions?
Okay, so I think that a lot of what I do in the food processing space requires you to kind of have some spatial relationships and be able to kind of visualize things. So even basic things like playing with Legos, or touching and feeling products as you're going through the grocery store and thinking one step ahead about how they got there, or where they came from, and did this open easily, or what is this made of? Can I recycle it? So even really basic things you can kind of work in your day-to-day, as long as you're looking at them from a different lens or thinking about it in a different way, can kind of help you think about the things that are interesting to you. Cooking is a really good example of things like, if you want to bake or cook in your own kitchen at home, it's getting you in the thought process of how something transforms from point A to point B as you go along the supply chain. And problem solving, I think, is another one. Just how do you, if you're cooking, for example, and something doesn't go well, taking the time to think back about what went wrong, what could I improve in the process, are all kind of ways that kind of help you think about, I like the creativity part, but I didn't really like the problem solving part. Okay, what are the kinds of careers that may fit better with this than that? So I think all those things that Todd and Matt suggested about getting jobs are awesome, and definitely a step in the process. But if you're not in position to go do that right now, there's things that you can do in your own controllable space that can start prepping you for those jobs, to kind of be curious along the journey.
Awesome. Great, guys. Thanks for sharing those bits of wisdom. I know that I absolutely love my job. But there are just little bits of my job that I'm like, oh, I have to do it so I can do the fun things, right? And so curious, if we're helping students just go into this area with eyes wide open, what's something that they just need to be aware of? What's an maybe isn't your favorite, but has to be done, and just so that they can see that aspect as well. Todd?
The paperwork.
Yeah.
The paperwork cannot be avoided. I know common saying around our shop is, if it isn't, it didn't happen. If it doesn't happen, to with food safety, they're going to, all three of us experience. There's just, a certain documentation that has to be done. Documentation. So that's by far the most challenging on a daily basis.
How do you, I guess to follow that up, and I'll ask the follow-up, what do you, Todd, do personally to put yourself in that mindset to, you know what, this needs to get done?
Actually, you know, the piece of advice that I was given, and I don't want to scare anybody off, put in front of in front of agents or a report to have to back you up what you did to get you and is it significant enough to be able to substantiate what you claim? You know, there again, okay, you know, with a recognized brand like Mars or Nestle, you know, you have just there's so much risk there to the. It's just so much there that so much risk there. You just absolutely have to have that documentation. There's just no two ways around it.
Gotcha. Good. Thank you. Matt, what would be an aspect of your job that, you know what, you just power through and get it done?
So I would have to mirror what Todd said, the paperwork. And the easy way I look at it is if I don't do the paperwork, I have to do more paperwork. So that's kind of how you have to get in that mindset of might as well do it right the first time, and then I don't have to do it all again. And explain why we didn't do it right the first time. But yeah, it truly is, you know, the paperwork anymore is, and that's the way we look at it is like Todd said, you know, they're going to go till they find a gap in the paperwork, and that's who's going to take the fall. So the less holes you have in your paperwork, the better off you are. That'd probably be the worst of my job.
Sure.
That's the person. So.
No, I appreciate you saying that. When I taught high school ag science, you know, I told students a lot. If you don't do it right the first time, you're going to spend more time doing it. So just take your time, do it well. You know, and when they would ask, why do we have to do all this? There will become a time in your life where you're just going to have to do it because you have to do it. So I appreciate that you're backing up those statements. There's a lot of ag teachers, teachers in general, saying yes, thank you. Megan, what about you? What's something that it maybe isn't your favorite, but has to get done?
I don't disagree with any of the previous statements about paperwork, so I'm not going to be redundant. So one thing I think is sort of a struggle for me is I have a mindset of like, let's make a decision and move on and do the thing we decided to do. And sometimes in the position that I'm in, it is my job to kind of help bring the rest of the organization along for the ride about why we made the decision, why it is still the right choice to do. And so I personally spend a decent amount of my job writing presentations to justify the decision we had already made, rehashing decisions sometimes so I can free up time for the rest of my team to go do the technical work, to design something, to qualify a new material, to partner with the factories, to buy a new machine that runs something more efficiently. And I end up kind of taking the brunt of the writing PowerPoint presentations and having meetings and crunching the numbers in the budget. And that's not that much fun for me, but it frees us up to actually do innovation, create new packages, create a opening mechanism for some package that just wows people and makes it so much easier for them to use the product. So sometimes you kind of it's paperwork, I guess, but it's like freeing up the brain capacity to think about the really fun, interesting sort of physical things by handling the presentations and the justification of projects. So it's, I guess the part I don't love is the dog and pony show to free us up to do the actual project work, but it has to be done because they go hand in hand.
Yep. Nope. I can appreciate that. And really, if you have everything in line, like you said, it gives you the freedom and the confidence to be able to go out and do what you love to do. And that's helpful versus having to go back and constantly, go back to that paperwork or the presentation. So I totally understand that. Appreciate that for sure. As we wrap up here, we're kind of getting to the end. So I appreciate you guys sharing for these students. But as we wrap up and we look at this career path, what would be one piece of advice that you would give students that are listening today and something just sparked that said, you know what, I want to know more about this area? What would be a piece of advice that you would give them as kind of a parting gift today to the career conversation?
Well, the whole world is all about change, and obviously right now we're in a whole nother change in our homes, you know, as opposed to somewhere else. There's just a constant change, as I say, the only constant. And so, you know, to be able to adapt to that change, to understand they're in the food system, so you can anticipate what's going to happen next. You can't always predict, but you can at least anticipate general trends and stuff. You know, obviously, things in packaging changes all the time. Our recipes and our company change all the time. They're asking different questions. They're asking things that, you know, we need to look at to, you know, our topics. Why? Because they're new and novel, and that's what people want. Okay, so we need to change that focus. We need to and add to that focus and gain that knowledge as well. So it's really being able to handle change and being okay with change, because it's just the way the world is going.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate that. Matt, what would you share?
Well, I think the biggest thing is don't think of agriculture as an old man in a pair of overalls walking behind a plow. You know, agriculture is such a vast, you know, everything can be tied to agriculture. So, you know, the most important thing I could tell somebody is find your passion and go up for it. You know, there's always, where there's a will, there's a way, you know, it's the old saying. So.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you. Megan?
I guess my advice would be pretty similar to the advice I give all of our interns or sort of straight out of school new hires is you don't have to know what you want to do for the rest of your career right now. And it's okay to maybe even only know what you want to do next, or, you know, 2 moves away. Because what you learn in your next move or your next career might influence what you want to do. You may take a right instead of a left. And so it's really important to be curious and kind of have an idea where you want to go, but not be locked into it being an exact straight line, because lots of things change. So kind of have an idea of what things are interesting to you and what places you want to go, but don't be super invested in it being an exact straight line, because you may miss out on some really cool opportunities along the way that would have influenced you to take even if it's just a subtle right instead of a left. You never know what you're going to encounter, and it's okay to learn new things, and it's okay to have new careers along the way that, you know, are maybe not what you thought you were going to be, but maybe that career doesn't even exist yet. So you're going to create it along the way. So just be curious and be open and be okay with yourself changing your mind, because that's totally okay too.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing those. I think, you know, whether a student is interested in this path or not, I think just your bits of wisdom can fit in any of our Be Agriculture panels, you know, any student that's looking for their next step. So I appreciate you guys sharing today and just kind of giving us a little bit of looking into what you guys do from a career standpoint. And for those that are watching, we appreciate that you came to this career conversation to learn a little bit more about food processing and potentially some careers that you might want to look at as you look at your next steps in your career path. So make sure that you check out the rest of our Be Agriculture career conversation panels on our YouTube and our Michigan Ag in the Classroom pages. And again, just want to say thanks to all of you for being here today. And we will we'll see you at the next career conversation.